Okay, babies, here we go. Today we are going to be talking about something that you know because we have talked about it in the past. We talked about it the previous year, we talked about it like at some point of this year, but we are going to remember it and we are going to talk about this topic like in general. Yes? Because I know that you know it, but we just have to check it in a good way. The topic that we are going to be talking about is passive voice. I know that you know it, I know that you remember it, but before continuing, I want you to tell me what do you remember of passive voice? Who can tell me something? Passive voice, what is that?
The passive voice is when the object va de primeras, algo así, ¿no?
Okay, something like that, yes. Who can tell me something else?
I want. It's like the windows was broken by I don't know by a person.
Yes, very good, you remember it. So, passive voice, as I have told you like 100 times, is when you give the importance to the action that is happening, like to the object or something, or to the one who received the action, and not really to the person who is doing the action. So, if you say, for example, Mario wrote this book, in active voice, in passive voice, you are going to give the importance to the book and to the action. So you are going to say the book was written by Mario. Yeah? It's like to change the order by giving importance to the object and not to the subject. Okay? That's passive voice. Anyway, we are going to remember passive voice once again. We are going to remember the entire topic once again, and we are going to reinforce the changes that must be done when you are changing sentences from active to passive or in the other way. Okay, guys? So, my dears, I am going to share with you my screen. Give me 1 second while I do it. This is it. So, babies, passive voice. Here we go. We are going to remember this. This is like in a short way because you remember. So, use of passive voice. Nata, can you please help me reading this first part?
Passive voice is used when the focus is on the action. It's not important or not no. However,
However,
however, for what is performing the action.
so as I was telling you, the important thing is the subject, not the subject, sorry, the object, and the action that is happening, but not the subject because you may have subject or maybe not. It's okay in both cases. We are going to check these examples to remember between active and passive, yeah? So, example number 1. This is going to be read by Valio Rego. Princess, can you please help me reading this first example in active?
Peter ate all of the cookies.
Very good. And what happened in passive?
All of the cookies were eaten by Peter.
So, all of the cookies were eaten by Peter. Let's check another example. Example number 2, Camilo. Can you see it in a good way?
The
Can you see it in a good way, baby, or not really? Because I'm worried about your eyes.
teacher to yes
Yes?
use
No. This one. No, just the example. Can you see the example in a good way, the one that says the students? Or the letter is too small due to the screen of your cell phone? Guess that the letter is like like really small. Babies, I'm not checking the chat because I am sharing my screen. So we are going to continue then. So Majo, can you please help me read in the second example, dear students?
Okay, teacher. The students clean the classroom every day.
Okay, so that's in active voice. And what happened in passive, Majo? Continue.
The classroom is cleaned every day by the students.
Okay, and let's go with the third example, Julie.
Yes, my grandparents built a red house. A red house was built by my grandparents.
So be careful with the pronunciation. Build. Okay. So my grandparents built a red house. A red house was built by my grandparents. Very good. If you realize, my dears, if you remember, in passive voice we give the importance to the object and to the action. The action that is happening, the action that something were eaten, that something is clean, that something was built, but not really to the person who is doing that. It's exactly the same if, for example, we say, all of the cookies were eaten, as if you say, all of the cookies were eaten by Peter. So Peter is not really the main character here. The main character are the cookies, yeah, and the fact that they were eaten. Let's check something else in these examples. Let's talk about the first one. Peter ate all of the cookies. In which verbal time is this sentence? Who can tell me? No one. What is this verbal time? Peter ate all of the cookies.
Is past
Is past. So if you realize when you change it to passive, what is the main change? Is this verb exactly the same? ¿El verbo cuando lo pasé aquí está igualito?
no is participle, no?
Yeah, so we have participle and we have something else. What is this? Where? What is that? What is the name of that?
Is where to be?
That's verb to be. Very good. So you can realize this, that you have verb to be and participle of the verb. Something happened. Is this verb to be in present or in past?
Past.
In past. Why? Because the sentence in active is in past. That's the first clue that I'm going to give you. Let's check the second examples. The students clean the classroom every day. In which verbal time is this sentence? If it's every
Present.
day, in present. Present what? Continuous?
Uh,
Simple?
Present simple.
Present simple. Very good. Let's check the passive voice. What happened with the verb here? How is
Is
the verb?
to be and past simple.
You have not really past simple, but participle.
Past.
But you also have verb to be. Is the verb to be in past or in present?
In present.
In present because the sentence in active is in present. Let's check the last one. My grandparents built a red house. Is this in which in present, in past, in future, in what? What is this verbal time?
Mm, is in present.
Not really. This is the past form. Look at this. You have
Mm,
T, built, not with D. So
yes.
with D is in present, with T is in past. Yeah? Let's check the passive. What happened with the verb? You have the participle and you have verb to be in present or in past.
In past.
Why?
Because porque is the same in the that in the first example, no?
Because in active voice, the sentence is in past. Yeah? You don't have verb to be here, but you know that is in past. So that's the first clue. Take that in mind because we are going to need it. Let's continue, babies. So, let's remember the grammar rules. Yeah, because it's important to remember that. That is the thing that I was telling you to keep in mind. Santiago, can you please help me reading this first part?
Yes, teacher.
Go ahead.
The passive is formed using the auxiliary verb to be and the past participle of the principal verb.
Very good. Or of the main verb. You have to use or you have to form, don't forget this, the passive voice by using verb to be as an auxiliary verb and the past participle of the main verb, and that is going to be always like this. You are going to have always, 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 always verb to be and always past participle, no matter what. You are going to see that you are going to have like some changes, some additions, and some things like that. But you can have passive voice if you don't have verb to be. Yeah, because the verb to be is going to be the one who is going to indicate the time that you are using. Yeah. So let's check this. So subject plus the auxiliary verb, that in this case is going to be this verb, verb to be, plus past participle. We are going to check some examples. So, um, Juan Pablo, can you please help me reading the first example?
Okay, my wallet has been stolen.
My wallet has been stolen. What happened here, babies? Why did you have has been? If you check or if you have this has been, what can you imagine? Which verbal time do we have in active voice? Because this is passive. So which verbal time do we have in active voice? Who can tell me if you have this, if you have the auxiliary verb that is verb to be as has been? No idea? Okay, I'll let you know in some minutes. Here you have the protagonist that is the wallet. Juan Pablo, please continue with the second example.
Okay, the room will be cleaned will
While
we are out.
the room will be clean while we are out. So, exactly the same. You don't know who is going to clean the room. The only thing that you know is that the room, that is like your main thing here, your main character, will be clean while you are out. Yeah? And finally, you have this one, Juan Pablo, the third one, attack
Okay, the thief was caught by the police.
by the police. Okay? Say it
Okay,
with me, by. Juan Pablo, say it with me, by the police.
by the police.
Very good. So in this case, you have like your actor that this one was caught by the police. But you can just have like the thief was caught, and this is going to be exactly the same. Main thing, main aspect, and then you have verb to be and your verb in past participle. This one is easy. Tell me what happened in this one. If you have to put this in active voice, what is the verbal time that you must use? If you have verb to be, just verb to be in past, and the main verb in participle, that means that your active voice is in which verbal time? Who can
In
tell me?
present and in past.
In past simple, right? Because you have verb to be in past. Look at this. Yeah? So, very good. We are going to continue. Questions up to this point, babies, or not questions? Great.
No teacher.
No, okay. Now, babies, we are going to check like 4 important rules that you have to take into account when you have to change a sentence from an active one to a passive one. Yeah? So please take these points into account. Number 1, Gabby.
La leo, profe.
Yeah, read it.
The object of an active voice sentence becomes the subject of the sentence in the passive.
Very good. So as I was telling you, the object, when you change it, the object becomes the subject. This is going to be the first thing. So for example, if you say, Pablo broke his bike, what is the object in that sentence? Pablo or the bike? Pablo broke his bike. Who can tell me what is the object in the sentence that I said? Guys, go ahead, you can do it.
Le is the object.
What is the object? If I say Pablo broke his bike.
The bike.
The bike, of course, and that is in active voice because you are telling that someone did something. But in passive voice, it is not important the person who did it. It's important the action that happened and the object. So when you change it, the bike that is the object, it's going to be the subject. So you will say the bike was broken by Paulo. Can you see? ¿Sí vieron que cambié el orden? So the bike or the object is going to be the first thing in your sentence when you are talking in passive voice. Questions about this first rule? Great. Let's continue then. Rule number 2, Isa.
The principal verb in the active voice is subs. How do you pronounce that?
Substitute.
Okay, yes. By the auxiliary verb to be in the same verb tense, and the verb is then in the past participle form.
So as I was telling you, you have to use to be all the time. If you realize in the example that I gave you, when I said Pablo broke his bike, this sentence was in past simple. So when I change it into passive voice, I had to use the verb to be in past simple. Yeah, the verb to be is going to be the one who is going to tell you the verbal tense. Don't forget that. And then you have to use the past participle form. Don't forget verb to be. It's really important. Questions about this second rule? Let's continue.
Yes, teacher.
Tell me.
Can you give me an example to understand better?
Yeah. So let's use the same example that I gave you. In active voice, en voz activa, que es la voz normal en la que uno habla, we can say, Pablo broke his bike. What am I saying? ¿Qué estoy diciendo ahí?
Él rompió su bicicleta.
Ajá, que Pablo rompió la bici. ¿Listo? That's in active voice. And in which verbal time am I saying this? Is this right now? Is this going to be in the future? Is this something that happened in the past?
Teacher, it will be like the bike were broken by Paulo, yes?
Yes, it's like that, but don't forget that when you have just one object, is was and not were. Where is for plural. And the bike is just one. So was and were, o claro, el pasado del verbo to be is was or were, taking into account the subject. As you are talking about it, an object, one thing you have to use what was. So can you tell me again the passive voice, but in the good way?
The bike was broken by Paulo.
That's it. Very good. If you realize I had to use the verb to be in past because the active voice was in past. If the active voice is in present, let's check it. So for example, if I say, Pablo eats hamburger, and that's it. Pablo eats hamburger. That's in present simple. How can I change that into passive voice? Who can tell me? Pablo eats hamburger.
In what? In passive?
Taking into account
hamburger is eating by Pablo.
Is eaten. So Pablo eat hamburger, or Pablo eat a hamburger. So the hamburger is eaten by Pablo. If you realize, I use the verb to be, but I use it in present. Lo usé en presente porque la oración que te di en active voice estaba en presente simple. And the main verb, that is it, is always going to be in past participle, no matter what. The thing that is going to change is the use of verb to be taking into account the verbal time in active voice. But the main verb is going to be in past participle. That means that you need to know the past participle form of the verbs. Questions up to this point, dears? Let's continue. Rule number 3. This is going to be read by Maho. Attack.
Sure. Bueno, the subject in the active voice ¿qué? Becomes the complement in the passive.
Very good. The subject in the active voice becomes the complement in the passive. If you realize, we don't, as the subject is not like the most important thing, this is going to be just like a complement. You can have it or not. So you can say, in the example that we are using, you can say, the bike was broken and that's it. Or you can say, the bike was broken by Pablo. Yeah? If you are going to use the subject as a complement, don't forget that you have to use by. What is the meaning of by?
Por.
Por. Si tú vas a decir la bicicleta fue rota por tal persona o simplemente la bicicleta fue rota. Yeah? You can use it or not because this is going to be the complement. Questions about this third use, guys? Nope. Let's continue then. And finally, use number 4, Juan David.
If in the passive we mention the subject who complements the
We
action,
get.
subject, agent, como se diga.
Mhm.
This subject is normally introduced in the passive with the preposition by.
As I was telling you. So this is just one rule because I don't want you to forget it. In passive voice, the subject is going to change the name. It is not going to be anymore the subject. It is going to be the agent. Yeah? The promoter of the action, the agent. So if you are mentioning that, if you are mentioning the subject who completed the action, it is important to use the preposition by. Don't forget that. Do you have questions about these rules in passive voice, babies, or not really? No? Okay, let's continue then. Now, babies, we are going to check this. This is maybe something new, maybe not, but we are going to talk a bit about passive voice with infinitives. What is an infinitive? I told you. The previous week I told you. Did you remember that I explained infinitives and gerunds? Yeah? So now that you know what is an infinitive and now that you know what is a gerund, we are going to learn how to use passive voice with infinitives and gerunds. So let's talk about infinitives. This one is going to be read by. Let me think who is not reading anymore. Give me 1 second because this is not moving. Sorry. Okay. So this one is going to be read by Mariana. Go ahead.
The infinitive passive voice is used after modal verbs and other most verbs, normally followed by an infinitive.
So you can use infinitive passive voice after modal verbs or some of the verbs that are usually followed by infinitives. Let's check examples to make it easier. Mariana, example number 1, please. You have to.
You have to be tested on your English grammar.
You have to be tased on your English grammar. So if you realize you have a modal verb that is have to, yeah? And in that case, you have to use verb to be and the verb in participle. This is not going to feel, these are going to be like maybe the ones who are going to avoid the rule of the importance of the object. Because if you realize here you have a subject, si se dan cuenta aquí tienen un sujeto, but when you are writing, you can just write like, you have to be test. No pueden ponerle esto sin ed, sin el participio, porque estaría mal escrito. Yeah? So take this into account when you have modal verbs and infinitives. Let's check the second example. Mariana, continue.
John might be promoted next year.
John might be promoted next year. So you have the subject, of course, but the important thing is the action. You have this modal verb that is might, a possibility. Yeah? So that means that as you have a modal verb, you have to use the form of the passive voice. Verb to be plus the verb in participle. Let's continue with the next example. Mariana, go ahead.
She wants to be invited to the party.
So, here you have an infinitive. She wants. This is conjugated. So as she wants something, what do you have to do? As you have the verb in the normal way, you have to add verb to be plus the past participle. And finally, last example, baby.
I accept to be surprised on my birthday.
So I expect infinitive verb. So that means that you have to use verb to be the normal way plus verb in participle. I expect to be surprised on my birthday. Do you have questions about the use of the passive voice structure with infinitive, babies? It's basically that. You just have to take into account that if you have a modal verb or a verb in infinitive, you just have to complete the next part with verb to be plus verb with a verb in participle. No questions about it? This is really important when you are writing, especially when you are writing, yeah? No questions? No one else? Let's continue then. So, let's talk about the use of passive voice when you have gerunds. What is a gerund? Who can tell me? I told you the previous week. No, like 2 weeks ago. What is a gerund?
Teacher, sorry, Natalia don't have internet.
Thank you. Babies, what is a gerund? I told you, you know it.
It works like a noun.
But what is the form of a gerund?
It's like the ando endo
Yeah,
in
in
Spanish.
English,
ing.
ing, that's it. Ing, don't forget that. Passive voice with gerunds. So, let's go with these examples in this reading. This is going to be done by Rego. Can you please help me reading this first part?
And herons are, yes,
Yes?
or the same.
Yeah, that one.
Herons are used after prepositions and verbs normally follow by a heron.
By a gerund. So, don't get confused by the explanation. Let's check the examples. Oh God. Let's check just the examples. Example number 1. I remember being taught to drive. What happened here? If you realize you have verb to be with ing as a gerund, and if you have in any kind of sentence the verb to be being used as a gerund, what you have to do is to follow it by a verb in past participle. If you have a being, you have to use a past participle form. Let's continue. The children are excited about being verb to be in ing, verb to be as a gerund, taken. So as you have it as a gerund, you have to use the next verb in participle. Being taken to the zoo. Ah, esta se me coló aquí. I'm so sorry. Let's avoid this one. Let's continue with this one. Most films stars hate being, again, verb to be as a gerund. So that means that the next verb is going to be used as a participle verb. Yeah? You have the comparison between these two and these two. Vamos a comparar la forma del verb to be as a gerund with the verb to be as a normal verb. So, if you have it as a gerund being, you have to use it here. What happens if you don't have it like that? We are going to read this one. The children are excited to be taken to the zoo. Yeah? If you don't have verb to be with ing, you also have, you are just going to have passive voice. Digamos que no es mandatorio, vas a tener la voz pasiva si tienes el verbo to be normalito, pero si lo tienes con ing, sí o sí vas a utilizar el siguiente verbo en participio, como la forma de la voz pasiva. ¿Listo? These two are okay, pero tú no puedes tener, por ejemplo, el being y take. No puedes decir about being take. No, that's wrong. So, verb to be as a gerund means that you have the next verb as a participle. Questions? Nope? Okay, let's continue then. Okay, let's talk about the most common uses of passive voice. And let's begin with simple past passive. Passive voice in past simple, you already know this because I taught you this in the past. So let's check this one. Juan Pablo, can you please help me reading this first part?
Okay. It is used for action complete in the past. In the past there are both regular verbs and irregular verbs.
Thank you. So, in the when you are using passive voice with past simple, that means that you are going to be talking about actions that happen in the past. That's usually. The thing with past simple is that you have regular and irregular verbs. Don't forget that. So that means that maybe when you change the active voice into passive voice, you can have the same verb, the verb like clean, that is cleaned, ed, in past and in participle, or you can have verb like, for example, give, that in past is gave, but in participle is, what is the participle form of give? Who knows?
Given.
Given. Very good. So you have to pay attention to that. You must be able to distinguish the verbs in the past form and in the past participle. Yeah? So let's check. Affirmative. As you know, you have to use the subject or the object, something like that, plus verb to be, that in this case is going to be in past simple because your sentences are going to be in past, plus the verb in past participle. We are going to check the examples. Isa, can you please help me with the first example?
Yes. The mistakes were corrected. I don't know how to say that.
Correct.
Correct by the teacher.
Okay. The mistakes were correct by the teacher. This is in active or in passive voice, Isa?
In passive.
In passive. What happens if you want to say this in active voice? How can you say it? Don't forget that in passive, the most important thing is like the object. But in active, the most important thing is the subject. Who is the subject here, Isa?
Teacher, Isa salió de la llamada.
Oh God, no. Who can help me then? Who can tell me how can we change this into active voice? Who wants to try?
Active. In active voice, the time is in past and the teacher is the subject.
Very good. So how can you say it? Give me the sentence. If in passive voice I say the mistakes were corrected by the teacher, how can I say exactly the same in active voice? Dame la oración en voz activa, in the normal way.
Is the teacher correct the mistakes?
That's it. The teacher correct the mistakes. Active voice, the subject do something. Passive voice, the something is important and the action is important. Very good. Let's continue with the next example. Julie, can you please help me read in the second example?
Yes, the poem was written by Pablo Neruda.
So the poem was written by Pablo Neruda. If you realize you have a poem singular, that means that the use of verb to be is going to be was, past participle, and then you have the subject. The poem was written by Pablo Neruda. This is of course in passive voice. How can you put it in active voice? Who can tell me?
Is Pablo Neruda write the poem?
So, almost.
Wrote the poem.
Wrote.
I wrote.
So Pablo Neruda wrote the poem. Questions about passive voice in affirmative in past simple? Let's continue. Ay. Negative form. So you have the structure. Of course, it's exactly the same structure, the object, was or were, but you have to add not. You can say was not, were not, or wasn't, weren't. Don't forget the contracted form. Plus the verb in past participle. Let's check the examples. Example number 1, Santiago. Santi, are you there?
Yes, teacher.
Go ahead.
The wallet wasn't given by him.
Very good. The wallet wasn't given by him. Example number 2. Santi.
The prize was not won by her.
Very good. Example number 3.
They were not told by me.
Very good. Let's change the second one. Santi, what happens if you want to say this second example, but not in passive, but in active voice? The prize was not won by her. How can you change this into active voice?
Her isn't won the prize.
Not really, because her is the way the possessive form, or yeah, that you are going to use.
Okay,
Because yeah, she. So
she she doesn't won the prize.
Not really. What is the auxiliar in past simple to say that something is negative? What is the auxiliar of past simple?
I don't remember, teacher.
Don't forget that in past simple the auxiliar is did. Yeah?
Okay.
So if you are saying this in active voice, you have to say she didn't win the prize. Ella no se ganó el premio. Don't forget that if you have the auxiliar, the verb is going to be in infinitive. So she didn't win the prize. Be careful, guys, with those kind of sentences in passive voice. Yeah, because if you realize, you just have to change it, but you must be able to change passive into active. Don't forget the auxiliars. Questions about this second part? Passive voice in negative? Let's continue. And finally, word questions. So with questions, the only thing that you have to do is to change the order. So instead of the object at the beginning, you are going to have the auxiliary verb, was or were, plus the object, plus the verb in past participle, plus question mark. So we are going to check the examples. Gabby, example number 1.
Were they told by you?
Very good. Number 2.
Were all the candy bars sold by the little boy?
Nice. Number 3.
Was the letter sent by him?
Very good. Gabby, can you please change the third one? Was the letter sent by him from passive to active? Please put it in active voice.
Him sent the letter?
Is a question. So if it's a question, how do you begin?
Did him send the... Ay, no sé.
Did, yeah, did.
Sí. Did him send
him.
the letter?
Acuérdate que no utilizas el him porque el him aquí en este caso es un complemento. El
He.
sujeto es he, not him. Him es
He.
como para decir él, ¿ya? Again, did he
send the letter?
Did he send the letter? Y ese send es con D, porque como tienes auxiliar, el verbo va a estar en infinitivo. Did he send the letter? The letter, very good, that's it. Babies, do you have questions about passive voice in past simple? Okay, let's continue then. That one, this is the hardest one. Esta del pasado simple es como la más compleja, so that's the reason why we talk about it. But now I want to show you something in 3 minutes. This one. When you have passive voice, babies, you have ways to change each verbal type. And I need you to remember this. So, in present simple, we just check it. If you have it in present, the only thing that you have to do is to use verb to be in present plus the verb in which, in what time? ¿Cómo pongo el verbo principal? ¿En qué?
In past participle.
In participle, very good. So let's check the example. I do my homework is done. That's it. In present continuous, let's do this really fast. If I have inactive, I am doing my homework, how can I change it into passive voice? Tengo que utilizar el verbo to be en continuo. ¿Y cómo utilizas el verbo to be en continuo? Pues así. Is being, are being. ¿Listo? Always. This is like having verb to be twice, but es porque estás diciendo está haciendo. Yes? Si lo traduces está haciendo, so you are using it like twice. Is being and then the verb in participle. So my homework is being done. In past simple is the one that I just told you. I did my homework. So if you have did or if you have the verb in past tense, you know that you are going to change it in passive with the verb to be in past plus the past participle of the main verb. My homework was done. Questions up to this point? Great. Let's continue with the other verbal types. Past continuous. This is important. What happened if I say I was doing my homework? Pasado continuo, algo que ocurrió en el pasado, tuvo continuidad, pero ya se acabó, yo estaba haciendo mi tarea. If you have this, past continuous is extremely similar to present continuous. The only thing that you have to change is the use of verb to be, because you have to use it in past, but being is going to be the same. El being no les va a cambiar, acuérdense de eso. ¿Listo? In past continuous, I was doing my homework was being done. Si le quiero completar este ejemplo con el sujeto, ¿cómo lo hago? My homework was being done by who? Who was doing the homework?
By me.
By me, very good. My homework was being done by me. So, if you have continuous, present, or past, you just have to use the verb to be in the first place, in present or in past, taking into account the example, and then you are going to write being, always. ¿Listo? Questions about it? Now, present
No.
perfect. I have done my homework. Present perfect, something that happened in the past, but you have consequences right now. I have done my homework. How can you change it? Well, easy peasy. My homework, tienes que usar el have o el has porque va a seguir siendo perfecto, un tiempo perfecto. Luego el verbo to be y luego vas a usar el participio del verbo. What happened, babies? Has been done. In the case of perfect times, the verb to be is going to be used in perfect. So, participle, been. Vas a tenerlo en participio y el siguiente verbo también en participio. ¿Sí? Porque ¿qué te dice el tiempo perfecto? Que vas a usar has o have y el participio del verbo. Entonces tienes que ponerlo así. I have done my homework has been done. But if you realize verb to be is mandatory. Questions about this one, babies? Okay.
Teacher, I don't understand very well this.
This one? Okay. When you have something in present perfect or in past perfect, remember that the rule of present and past, let's imagine present perfect, you have to say, I have to use subject plus has or have plus the verb in participle. Esa es la regla del presente perfecto. En el caso del pasado perfecto te dicen, vas a usar el sujeto plus had plus verb in past participle. ¿Sí ves? La regla te está diciendo que tienes que usar has o have y un verbo en pasado participio, el que sea. ¿Sí? Entonces, como tienes que usar has o have y el verbo en participio, cuando tú pasas la voz activa a voz pasiva, tienes que seguir usando el have o el has porque va a seguir siendo en tiempo perfecto. Y el verbo to be, como después del has o del have, vas a usar participio, el verbo to be lo vas a poner en participio. ¿Sí ves? El verbo to be siempre va a ir en el tiempo del que estés hablando. Entonces, si están perfecto, acaban perfecto. Si están presente, acaban presente. ¿Sí ves? Y luego pones el verbo principal, que en este caso es done, en participio pasado. My homework has been done. No te puedes olvidar del verbo to be. Entonces lo vas a poner en participio. Recuerda que cuando es presente perfecto o pasado perfecto, siempre va a ser been. ¿Listo, amor? Is it better now? Guys, I'm so sorry.
Yes,
Discúlpame
teacher.
que les estoy quitando unos minuticos de los 10 minutos, un minuto más y ya los dejo ir. I'm so sorry. I want to explain this really fast. The same thing happened in past perfect. So, but instead of has and has, you are going to use had. So, my homework had been done. What happened in future, guys? In future is really easy because you just have to use will, that is the future tense, or going to, and the verb to be, like be. Van a poner el verbo to be normal, be, así, be, porque ya tienes un will. Entonces, I will do my homework will be done. So, future, verb to be, verb in past participle. The, the same thing happened with going to. It's another future tense. So, I am going to do my homework. My homework is going to, porque estás hablando de un futuro, going to be done. Pones el verbo to be solo como be, porque ya tienes un futuro indicativo. In the case of modal verbs, it's going to be exactly the same. Van a poner el verbo como be porque tienes un modal. Acuérdense de lo que les expliqué ahorita. I must do my homework must be done. Pones el modal, pones el verbo to be, así normal en infinitivo, be, y el verbo principal en participio pasado. And finally, when you have like, no, omitan este modal perfect porque es el tema de, en otras sesiones les voy a explicar bien ese. So, questions about the use of passive voice in English, amores? I am going to send you this image to your email for you to have it, okay? And if you have questions, just let me know. Tomorrow we are going to do the practice. No, not tomorrow, but on Friday. Yeah, we are going to practice this for a bit. And that's all for today, guys. I'm sorry. I know that I still 5 minutes, but it was important to me to finish the explanation. So have a nice day, babies, and I see you tomorrow. Love you. Bye bye.
Bye,
Bye,
teacher.
teacher. Love